Welcome to Matters of DeCorum. I'm Scott Corum. This is what matters to me. Couple of technical notes. I did the video on my audio technique and options and selected the Yeti as my best option. It is now mounted on the underside of my second desk. Andrew and I had a day of arts and crafts with power tools and mounted it so it's not just mounted there, but it folds up and slides under the table so that it can go out of the way when I'm not using it. Slide it up, fold it up. Kind of a Thunderbirds thing going for it, which I am really appreciative of. Also, the day I came out with that video, Andrew informed me that my RTX video card, they've just come out with software for it that utilizes AI to subtract sound that is not a voice from an audio feed on the fly, real time. So I gave that a try and I'm using it now, and it is fascinating and goes the rest of the distance towards making my audio what I want it to be. So awesome. Also, on the technical video, I was asked about what is my favorite writing I have done. That falls into three categories. Stuff I shouldn't tell you about, stuff it is beyond my control to show you, and the stuff that I can show you. That first one, erotica. I write erotica. I'm an adult. I can make my own choices. I like dirty stuff from time to time. While it is not something I've ever decided to share in this venue, I will talk about it academically here, but I do not share that particular aspect of my writing or creativity here on YouTube for any number of reasons, but I like my public persona and I'm going to stick with it. But yeah, that is exploratory writing. That is writing where I try out different techniques and where I am invested in the subject matter. And I share it in occasional online venues under a pseudonym. I wrote it I published some under a pseudonym online through a couple of online outlets, which was actually kind of lucrative until the industry decided that you could not publish that material for a profit anymore. So that stream of revenue went away from me, as it did for hundreds, if not thousands, of other authors using that venue. So that reduced my enthusiasm for the art, but I still have some pieces that I am very fond of and will occasionally revisit. If you are really, really interested, I might talk about how that could theoretically become accessible, but it's not something I really intend to share, and certainly not through here. Category 2, I do not write for other people, as a rule. I am open to a certain amount of it now, but I've had some bad experiences with it. I don't work with other people. I don't write for other people because of bad experiences and because I am well aware of my current inconsistencies with output and productivity. Partially my chemotherapy-induced malfunctions. But I did. And this set of events is not in any way meant to be an accusation or recriminations. Things happen. I need to make that clear from the top. I was asked to involve myself in a writing project amongst an unknown but fairly large number of artists some years ago. And I was asked to do this at a time when I desperately needed something on which to focus. My father had just passed away, literally, like that day when the first email arrived. I was thrilled to be invited to such a thing. It's the kind of thing my dad would have really enjoyed me being invited to and participating in. So I went in. I jumped in with both feet. I jumped in with both feet hard. As other artists came and went, I was central enough to be made the line editor for this project. But how I explored concepts that were given to me, because it was ground floor. These concepts need to be fleshed out a little bit and structure given to them. And I absorbed the concepts by I'd get a description. I'd write a short story based around it. And I would ask the creator of the concept, did I nail this? Is this what you're talking about? And I would adapt my short stories and edit them and change them until they fit. And that was challenging, and I really dug in. Again, my brain needed some place to be other than a world where my father no longer existed. So having the work saved me. Really helped me with my grief process, and it had value there. But it's some of the best stuff I've ever written before or since, because I was digging in, and there was a hill to overcome, and nothing gets me operational like a challenge, and this really worked. I have not named the project or the product that it produced because it never came out. Things happened, things beyond the control of anyone involved. That writing is not reverted to me because that project isn't dead. It has been, well, it's been 9 years, and I do not hold out a lot of hope, but every so often some portion of it surfaces, some idea of it is still around. A name gets bandied about in the occasional forum, and it could still be a thing. It could still happen. That work could still be produced and be compensated for. So I can't really share it on my own. If it ever comes out, it comes out. I'll be sure to let you know the moment it does here in this forum. But that work, the series of short stories I wrote as Fluff for this project, not even Fluff, they fleshed out the world for me, so they're actually more integral to that work than a lot of writing and role-playing games. It fleshed out a lot, and could have been the beginning of a novel, and might have been. Novels based on those products could absolutely have happened, and I was kind of right there to do that. Someday, maybe. Third category. I have written things that have been published. A great many of them, mostly role-playing game supplements. And I go back to many of them often. If you have ever followed the link at the bottom of my description here that goes to my store page, there's a lot of those. I will pull them up and I will read them from time to time because they were written to elicit an emotional response. I tried to get an emotional response in others by writing to get an emotional response out of myself. Those stories make me feel good. I enjoy the characters. I enjoy the subject matter. A lot of them are when I'm fleshing out the world of Hot Chicks. As a Hot Chicks, the role-playing game, my first role-playing game project, written in 2007 for the most part, was... as a role-playing game book, it is a bit much, and it has a lot to be desired. I did not organize it well at all. It's a little confusing. I don't want to say it's got too much stuff in it, because I did not want to produce a game that did not have enough stuff in it. I may have overcompensated there. But a lot of the fiction, the writing, the chapter headers, the introductions, those things, they're still good. They still hold up. Those are still good characters. I still use those. And over the years, as I continue to use that technique to flesh things out, adding fiction to my role playing, I like a good bit of fluff. You get a role-playing game book, you get an RPG book, a rule book or a supplement or whatever, and there's some core meat and potatoes, there's numbers and there's charts and there's descriptions and there's events in there, and you got to get those, and sometimes they'll include fluff. Fluff is the fiction in between everything else. It does not, you don't necessarily need to read the fluff to run the material. Certainly don't need to read the fluff to play the material, but that gives you a narrative description of events occurring within that game world. And as such, I do not consider fluff to be fluff. I consider that almost essential. White Wolf does this stuff better than just about anyone else. And worse than just about anyone else. They've had their bad days too. Aeon Trinity Adventure comes to mind. But White Wolf's World of Darkness is so successful and so evocative and so atmospheric, and a big part of how they accomplished that was in the amazing narrative literature that accompanies their products. So you read through to get a feeling of, oh wow, this is what I'm about to get into, and then they give you some rules and you get into it. And the fluff supports the rule system and the setting material and vice versa, and it works beautifully, which is kind of the system that I tried to adapt. So as the years went on, and I wrote almost 200 supplements for Hot Chicks alone, that produced a lot of fiction that I still really enjoy going back to. In fact, I will pull up a supplement that I thought was nothing but, well, this is just a little something, but just a little bit of the writing in there. It's a little something, just a little spike. There are some examples of things close to erotica in those, because sometimes, and there are some adult products. I've gone away from producing those of late, but I haven't removed a single one from the shop. And so you can get some examples of that kind of writing that I do. On a leash, that stuff was written for a public market, not an online forum designed for titillation, so it's different. But I didn't pull any punches either when it came to the subject matter. And I enjoy some of that stuff. The Victory system as a role-playing game, the core rulebook doesn't have fluff in it per se. It didn't belong there. It is just the core. It is the basics. It is the meat and potatoes. There's some adventures in the back that have a certain amount of narrative structure to them, but for the most part, I did not throw that in there. But a lot of the supplements I've written since have. So that's the kind of stuff you can find if you just follow that link all the way at the bottom. I'm going to add a few more links. My first novel, I will go back and read, at least in part or in whole, time and time again. That is With a Single Wish Forever. I do not consider it a good book. Certainly not looking back on it over time. It could have had about 75% of what is in there stripped away. There is a lot in there that doesn't necessarily fit a consistent narrative. It is my mind. It is how I daydreamed that story. It is my mind going through events and playing things out and coming up with little vignettes and scenes, and I kind of just jammed them together. The characters aren't always consistent, but I still like it. It's still fun, because those are bits and pieces of my daydreams trapped between pages, and I get to open them up and free them every so often. When I finished the Hot Chicks role-playing line, I did finish it. There's a definitive end. There's a meta story that runs along with Hot Chicks. I also like having meta stories in games, particularly when it comes to setting material. And I finished that storyline in a supplement called 2018 The War for Hell. Another one with good literature in it, I think. But I'm picking up from there because people seem to really enjoy that game world and the concepts there. I'm carrying it forward in Destiny as the setting Destiny 2025. for the victory system. And that 7-year gap, I had to cover a couple of events that happened in that gap and explain how some of the cosmology shifts. So I wrote a novella called Apotheosis. Apotheosis, a hot chick's novella. And it's a little confused in spots because I needed to cram some descriptions of stuff because I wrote it assuming that you hadn't read all the supplements for Hot Chicks, that I had to explain some of the history and some of the paths that the characters took, which were pretty convoluted. But as a descriptive thing, it's not a great piece of literature. It has its flaws, but it does what I wanted it to do, and I still enjoy reading it from time to time. So there's that. While I do not generally work with other people's properties, as you know, I've had bad experiences. A friend of mine was running a Kickstarter for a beloved fantasy world that he had been working on for years, and he actually got supported by Pinnacle. Pinnacle picked it up and was producing it as a Savage Worlds setting, which is amazing. I asked him if there's anything I could do. And there are 2 projects that I got handed as stretch goals, actually. One, write a 1-page venture based on a map. Got the short end of the stick on that one, because I was given a map that was entitled The Throne of the Dragon King, and this particular setting doesn't have dragons in it, or there have been dragons, but there are none now. So what do you do with that? Well, I handled it okay. I think I handled it okay. It was challenging, but I love me a challenge. The other one, people were given chunks of the world and said, write a novella in that area. And there was an area that didn't have much description, but the paragraph I read kind of spiked, and he said, I'll take that. I'll write something there. I'll take the rest of the information you have about it so I can flesh this out. It's like, no, that's it. There's a paragraph. That's all there is. So I ran with it and wrote a novella entitled The Hunt of the Midnight Dominus. It is not my usual stuff. I was working with someone else's setting. I was working with fantasy tropes. I generally don't write fantasy, but I might need to write some more. And there was a certain narrative structure I was trying to hit because a novella has a very definite length, and you need to get it under that length. I had 30,000 words to play with, and I can get wordy from time to time. But I sweated and agonized and slaved over a little bit and trimmed my ideas down and kept just the meat. And I'm very proud of that book. It doesn't get a lot of exposure. That's fine. That is Pinnacle's baby now, but I will give you a link to it anyway. Because, yeah, it is probably one of my absolute favorites of my own writing. So there you go. Shaintar, Hunt of the Midnight Dominus. At the end of these videos, I advertise my Patreon. www.patreon.com/ScottCorum. And that is where I share more of my ideas. I have a Discord a Discord server for myself and my patrons from there, and I will share more of my ideas and thoughts a little bit more freely. I'm very careful about this particular public forum. And the public persona that I maintain here, which is me with some of the edges filed off, I guess you would say. I do not hide those edges on that particular server. And so, especially the people who've been with me for the longest, it is not a long group, but it is a group of people I consider friends. Hi, guys. And if there is interest in hearing about any of these other works I've done, I might find ways to share them there. Short of that, I guess I'll just have to keep those things I shouldn't talk about here. I have to talk about something I did that was dumb. I intend to write more. There are going to be more works that I have produced in time. I want to write more. There are problems. One, a thick layer of executive dysfunction that makes it harder for me to write. And two, the fact that I had worked through my executive dysfunction pretty well at one point in time, and then chemotherapy came in and erased a lot of the work that I had done. So I need to do that all over again. Maybe my very favorite writing is the stuff I haven't done yet, because I still like get to romanticize the kinds of things I might write about. And the more I do that, the more I might actually write them. It's just time and effort and desire and rebuilding the disciplines and techniques that have allowed me to get work done in the past so that I can get work done in the future. The dumb thing that I did. I drink coffee. Coffee bridges the gaps. Coffee gives me a boost and gets me past things. I had work I needed to get done Saturday. I've been in this house for 5 weeks, doing my civic and civil duties, trying to make sure that we stay safe and flatten the curve in our difficult times. I've been in this house for 5 weeks. I went out to get a coffee because I could. My friend Devin came over and gave us a bunch of fabrics. Anna has been working on making masks, improving her techniques, finding good patterns, mixing them up. And I had a really good one. It's a steampunk clocks and gears fabric made into a very fashionable and useful mask. It doesn't steam up my glasses when I wear it, so kind of perfect. I went driving to the Coffee Bean with the drive-thru, and they were closed. So I went to the Coffee Bean by the mall, which was open, but only doing takeout, which is fine. I walked in a mask. I haven't been there for a month and a half, maybe 2 months. It's been a while. Barista behind the counter says, "Hi, Scott," because I have a problem. I order a drink for Andrew. I order a drink for Anna, but they do not have cold brew. They do not have nitro. They do not have those things that I normally get, the high caffeine content, so I can get over my problems and get my work done. And this wave of stupid crested in the back of my head and crashed out my mouth in the form of, "Could I just get 20 shots of espresso over ice?" And the barista looked at me and said, "Yeah, we can do that." And made it. They made it. They made me 20 shots of espresso over ice. I got the work done. I got some problems with that transferring characters between DAZ Studio and Blender. I got that done, so I can. I've been working on that for weeks. No, I can do that. I can do anything. And solve some other problems I have with art techniques. Started producing some things. Played Ark with my friends on the server for a little while, and then went back and did some more art. And suddenly it's 6 o'clock Sunday morning. I haven't slept, and I tried to sleep and didn't really succeed. I lied down for a while, then I got back up, and everything turned gray because all that caffeine crashed on me all at once. And I spent Sunday as a gray formless blob, unable to communicate or do anything other than click between YouTube videos until I slept last night. I think most of the caffeine has worked its way out, which is why I'm refilling for the day. 20 shots, a little bit much for someone my age, or any age. No one should ever do 20 shots of espresso. That was not smart. Got a lot done. If I can find a way to mitigate that crash at the end of it, maybe. Or maybe not. 15. Let's see what 15 does. Well, thank you again very much for watching. And thank you for asking. I appreciate the interest. If you enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't enjoy the video, give me a thumbs down. Feedback is feedback. If there's anything else you'd like to hear me talk about, or commentary on my books, or anything you'd like to see, subjects you'd like to hear me cover, things you'd like to hear me talk about, leave me a comment below. I will love getting your comment. You'll love leaving me one. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, why not? My channel is awesome. Go ahead and click the subscribe button. If you do, please also hit the little bell next to it so you are alerted when my videos become available. If you would like to support the channel in a more substantial manner, I invite you to hit me at my Patreon page, www.patreon.com/ScottCorum, and consider donating. Absolutely anything helps and allows me to make better videos more often. Also, a slightly broader access to things that I produce. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching. And again, thank you very much for the interest. I'm Scott Corum. This is what has mattered to me. And I'll see you next time on my next Matters of Decorum.